There's a reason why I love, making these videos, and it's the comments. And some people are like, "Oh, don't read the comments; they hurt your feelings," but I love them. And so last week's video, which I'm actually reusing some of the background for, we talked, of course, about this ship here, the Corsair, and some people think that my fanboyishness for this ship is founded perhaps in a fetish or a sexual desire. I can assure you that's not the case. But I can see how you would get there. I could see. But why do I like it so much? Because it's a watershed moment. It's knowing what is going to happen before it happens. There was another comment talking specifically about the Ion, and someone referring to it, well, CIG just turned it into a spastic repeater. And that's kind of what CIG did to the Ion. It was their way of nerfing it. And the Ion really did illustrate a lot of the ideas that we've talked about, a lot of the problems with how Star Citizen presents combat to the players, and how that would evolve beyond the Arena Commander ideal to the real Star Citizen universe. And how that transition, we've talked about this so many times, that transition is going to be extremely difficult for people. And it's going to come like a brutal shock. And the Ion was really kind of the canary in the coal mine. And CIG quickly moved in to kind of knock this thing down or get it to a much more reasonable level, because we don't think that it's fair. The truth is that someone might look at the Corsair and say, I see a lot of the same ideas when you're talking about the Corsair. How are you not sure that the Corsair is going to suffer the same fate? And the truth of it is that the Corsair's problem is that it was attached to a bespoke weapon, a weapon that is permanently integrated and attached to the ship. And so when CIG nerfed the Ion, they only nerfed the Ion, right? That is as far as that nerf goes. It is limited to this one ship, this one instance of a weapon and a ship interacting. This is all that we're touching. When you step into the world of the Corsair doesn't have bespoke weapons. The Corsair has the same universal weapons that any other ship can use. And I mean, if you take things down to the gimbaled range, these are the weapons that fighters and medium fighters can use, the size 3s and up to the size 4s in some cases. If you nerf the Corsair, you nerf every other ship that uses size 5, size 3, and size 4 guns. You universally have to hit everything. It's inescapable. Because the Corsair does not have bespoke weapons. It has universal weapons. It is part of this idea of we can tinker with our ships and we can go with the fittings that we like and all of this. We're in the world of universal modules and not bespoke modules, which is a vulnerability that the Ion has that the Corsair does not have. Because in order to tamp down the Corsair, you literally have to apply that universally across most of the playable ships in your game. So ultimately, the way that CIG dealt with the Ion was as if the Ion was the problem. But the Ion wasn't the problem. The Ion was the symptom of the problem. And I think that maybe to CIG's credit, they see it. They understand it. And the reason why they're kind of quiet on this is because they're kind of going back internally and saying, oh, we've got a real problem here. Because Arena Commander created an unrealistic expectation of what combat would be moving into the much larger universe. And now this is becoming very manifest in Star Citizen. And as more ships like the Corsair come into the game, they're going to, further exasperate this problem. Like the Ion is not alone. To a certain degree, the Vanguard Warden is a prime example of this. The Sentinel is a prime example of this as well. But it just didn't have that resounding firepower that really kind of went like, no, like, blap, you're out of the game. But, you can't really nerf that, right? Because if you nerf that, then you nerf every other ship that uses those universal weapons, those universal modules, for instance. So in treating the symptom, in trying to specifically treat this one symptom of the problem, the ion, you can specifically target it because it's a bespoke weapon on a singular platform. But when you expand that problem into newer and newer areas, you get into a situation where all of a sudden your solution doesn't work anymore, right? Because there are going to be certain instances where you could have 2 size 3 guns on a Corsair. Well, if you nerf size 3 guns, you nerf everything that can carry those weapons, and that's a lot of ships. And even the size 4s and up to the size 5s, you're still talking about weapons that are used on a wide swath of ships in Star Citizen. You can't really do that because you all of a sudden you're introducing this random element that changes up everything. And that's kind of where I say that the Corsair is the safer choice in and of the two. Now, there was a comment in regards to, should I get rid of my Corsair to get a Constellation? The Constellation is still very much capable of doing what the Corsair does. And the Constellation is a pretty good loner. And I think that most Constellation owners would probably agree, even those that have the loner, is it has improved a lot since its initial arrival in Star Citizen, quite a bit. I mean, I love to use this example because it's just a funny example for me, but flying the Constellation used to be like trying to help a belligerent drunk girl down a flight of stairs. Like, I don't need your help, but it was like it was almost impossible to manage because it just wanted to wander all over the place laterally as you were controlling it or trying to. And it has since improved a lot. And there's a reason why the Constellation is such a solid mission running ship in Star Citizen now. It is kind of the gold standard right now. Now, the Corsair comparatively, I would say that the Corsair is going to have not much more, but it's going to have a harder hitting forward firepower at the expense of resilience, at the expense of certain utilities. It's going to focus in different areas. Like a lot of Drake ships, it's not going to be the most resilient thing. It's not going to be the flashiest thing, or it's not going to have all the little amenities, but it's going to have what matters, and it's probably going to have a speed and maneuverability advantage over the Constellation. And so I would argue that at that point it becomes personal taste, truthfully. Now, there is something to be said about the snub fighter on the Constellation, and certainly when we're talking about tactics involving 6 degrees of freedom and decoupling and flying through a battlefield at high speed and just turreting things down, and anything that's stupid enough to chase you is just going to get nerfed right then and there. Having that extra little snub fighter to run interference for you could be an asset. It could very well be an asset in that situation. And that's something that really hasn't fully manifested itself in Star Citizen yet, but it's something that's coming. As the game evolves and as people have more reason to go out and earn money in the game because maybe their CIG has now kind of realized that having things that players can collect, having things that players can chase after and attribute to their account in a semi-permanent way or in a permanent way is basically, it's like this endless wellspring of content that you can draw from. It's not the only content that you should put in a video game like this by far, but it's a lot of players find that very rewarding to collect things and to chase after things, and as reputations and these things become more important in the game, and not just, here's a little reputation bar, let's see where this goes. But when it becomes much more tangible, and it does come with rewards, and it does come with things that players are going to chase after, they're going to start really looking at those mission running ships, or what they consider to be mission running ships. And you're going to start to see this behavior accelerate. Now, the unfortunate side of it currently is that because CIG was so heavily focused on fighters for so long, that this is really kind of where CIG is going to be drawing. If they're looking towards the future and if they're really paying attention, this is where a lot of their future money in terms of ship sales is probably going to come from. It's going to come from the answer to the 400i, the answer to the Constellation, the answer to the Corsair, and varying other ships in this area. This is the kind of atrophied and underworked area of Star Citizen that they really should be paying more attention to. And this is probably where they're going to be drawing a lot of income from in the future in terms of funding the game. Because obviously this is still going to take a little while yet to get this game done. But as new systems come online, as players have to travel further for objectives or to chase reputations, and it requires longer periods of sustained gameplay, possibly away from home or away from a base and being able to bring equipment with you, these ships are very much going to come to the forefront. Now, you can, depending on how many people you have to play with or whether you're playing alone, you can include ships like the Hammerhead in this as well. The Carrack, I would argue, the Carrack and the Hammerhead are kind of at the upper end of this. These ships are very much going to become the cash grinders, whether you're working alone or working in a group. These are going to also become the reputation grinders, and these are going to become much more important things in the future when there's stuff attached to them. And so you're going to start to see a lot of shift towards these ships. So the idea is like, oh, they're going to nerf the Corsair. Realistically, they can't. Because, yeah, there's the universal weapons argument that we've already made, but there's also the fact that this is the future. And, I mean, you would be cutting off your nose to spite your face, because these are the ships that people are going to end up flying in Star Citizen. Because Star Citizen is Star Citizen. It's not Arena Commander. And it was never going to be Arena Commander. So, right now, I would say the ships, if you're thinking about a Constellation, like, oh, should I get the Corsair? You have enough freedom right now to play things as they evolve, and we're still able to switch and move things around quarter by quarter by quarter and play little games to CCU to this and then go back to that and then try this out and blah, 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 blah. So experiment. See what you like. See what works for you. See what suits your play style and how many people you have to play with and whatnot. And then build your fleet around that. Build your fleet around play experience in the game. Don't build your fleet around some bullshit in a brochure written 5 years ago. Build it around what you know works in the game.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.